Hi, welcome to the training webinar. I'm Dale Franks, and today we are going to talk about the goal object in Process Director. The goal object is an interesting one because it does two things. I think first I want to step back a little bit in history. There used to be, and I guess if you have an older version of Process Director, you still have this scheduler module, which I guess technically still exists in the product. And what it was designed to do was to be able to set up a schedule to call processes. And at some point we figured out that, well, we have a couple of different ways of calling processes. We can call a knowledge view, and we can have a knowledge view run a process for each row in the knowledge view and just kick off a new process, taking the data from each row and usually importing it into a form and then running a process with that knowledge view data in the form. And one of the ways that we did this was using the Windows scheduler. And you would go into the Windows scheduler and you'd run a prompt to basically, if it was to run the URL for the knowledge view, you would set up a schedule to do that, and you would call a command in BP util to run that command. And BP util is just one of the utilities like BP email import and BP import and BP util. Those are the three utilities that kind of come with the product. And we're using Windows Scheduler a lot. And ultimately, we came to the idea that what we really need to be able to do is to schedule things to happen inside Process Director. So if we wanted to run a knowledge view that invoked multiple processes, then we could do that. But if we wanted to also, on a scheduled basis, just run a process, and then you start thinking, well, wait a second, if I'm going to run a knowledge view that invokes a bunch of processes, or I'm just going to run a process individually, and I'm going to do it on a scheduled basis, it would also be cool if I could have a condition set that I would create about when I could run those things, in addition to just the schedule itself, have a further evaluation of whether or not something needed to be run. And by the way, if we're going to do that, why not just set some sort of system state, some sort of marker that we could also use in processes to check this system value, this marker, and based on the value of that marker, maybe we could change the way that a process worked. We could use it as a needed when condition. So, if the system state is X, then run this activity in this process timeline. And we packaged all of that up into an object called the goal. And so we're going to discuss all of those aspects of using goals today. And we are going to go over the basic configuration of a goal. And I think we have to, because it does so many things. So rather than just looking at the practical side of it, which we are certainly going to look at and build some stuff, we also need to look at the goal itself to get an idea of the kind of flexibility that a goal has. So with all of that in mind, let's go ahead and share my screen. Actually, we're not going to go ahead and do anything. I am going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can take a look at goals. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're just going to create a goal, and we're going to go over some of the basic configuration. Obviously, it needs a name. We'll just call it webinar, and we'll hit OK, and that should take us to the properties tab of our new webinar goal. Like a business value or a business rule, we do need to set the group in value picker, which is invaluable for us for organizing our menu in the choose system variable dialog box so that we can find the goal whenever we start using it. So I'm just going to call this the June 4 webinar goal. And so that way, when I try to apply this goal a little bit later, we'll be able to find it easier in the Choose System dialog box. Down at the bottom, you have the goal is currently active or not active. So remember, what we are most likely going to do with a goal, the whole reason for the goal existing in the first place, is to be able to schedule something to happen. And whether that is just setting a system state or whether it's invoking a process, whatever it may be, we're going to have to turn the goal on, and we also want to have the ability to turn it off if we don't want the goal to run on a scheduled basis. So that's what the goal is currently active or not active. So if I were to set a schedule for a goal, if that goal is not active, that schedule will never run. Now, we can always go into a goal, open its definition, and invoke the goal manually, which I'll probably end up having to do a number of times today. And you can always manually invoke a goal. You don't have to live by the schedule. If you think the goal needs to run, you can always manually invoke it. But if this is set to not active, and we are going to keep everything set to not active so that I don't have to worry about going back in and deactivating all of the goals later. If it is set to not active, the schedule will not run. You can set a schedule, but it won't matter because as long as the goal is not active, that goal schedule will never be invoked. And so the goal will never run unless, of course, you invoke it manually. So whenever you are creating a goal, one of the things that you're going to want to do whenever it goes into production is ensure that it is set to active. Otherwise, the goal is not going to run. The execution options are somewhat complex because the goal does several things and it may run under several circumstances. I talked about conditions a minute ago, and we'll get there to the conditions, but there are some generalized overall conditions that determine whether the goal runs at all, and when it runs, what we want it to do. So remember, I said earlier, one of the things that a goal does is it sets a system state. So we should probably take a look at system state. In fact, rather than continuing with this goal, let's go and look at a goal that actually exists, and we'll look at the different ways that we can run it, because these goals here, and I am going to hit OK to save this goal because I want to save what we've done so far. But let's actually go in and look at a goal that is configured. And we'll get down to this part here and we'll talk about what it is set up to do. But we are setting a result. And so this general system state that I'm talking about is a goal's result. A goal's result is a universal value that is accessible from anywhere in the system via a sysvar. And the sysvar is just goal : goal name. And it will always return the value that is set by a goal. No matter what you're doing with the goal, you're probably going to want to set a result and not leave the result blank. You'll always have the option to set a result, and you should always do so. You should never set it to be blank. And this result is actually shown down here in history where this goal ran. So this goal ran yesterday at 2:26 p.m. So it is scheduled, according to the schedule I've created, to run today at 2:26 p.m. The goal's value is currently 4. The previous goal's value was 7. Let's put a pin in that, because in actuality, if this goal were to be evaluated now, which we are going to evaluate it in a little bit, the actual goal value is going to be 7. I know it's going to be 7 because I know the data that I created to make this goal work. So this goal's value is currently 4, but that's not what the goal's value should be, and it's not what it would be if the goal were to run again. But keep that in mind we'll come back to that. So when the goal runs, it has a value. That value is the result. And that informs what we are going to choose up here with how we want the goal to run. So my first property, execute actions when. I can either run it anytime the goal's conditions are met. So if either of these conditions are met, I want to execute the actions immediately. In this case, that is exactly what I want to do because I have two conditions. New customers is greater than 0 or new customers equals 0. One of these two things will always be true. These are two mutually exclusive conditions. I know that there is no way that neither of these conditions cannot be true. One will always be true. I can't have negative new customers. So it's either 0 or something more than 0. So in this case, I want this action, whichever one of these actions meets the condition, I want the action to run every time the goal runs. However, the second condition is equally important. I want the goal's actions to run when a condition is met and when the goal result differs from the previous result. So it is conceivable that I could run this goal multiple times and the current goal value might be 7. And indeed, if I were to run it, that would be the current goal value. And the previous goal value was 7. So if my previous value was 7 and I ran it again and the value was also 7, checking the second box means that the goal wouldn't run. And so the goal will only run if, or the actions will only run if A, their conditions are met, and B, the current goal's value, whatever the result is from this run of the goal, is different than the previous run of the goal. So the reason that we might want to do this is, I'm going to have, let's say that I have, this now, what I'm doing for this goal is not really applicable, which is why it's configured the way that it is. I actually, if there are any new customers at all, I want to run a process. And if there are no new customers, I won't run a process. Now, technically, I could erase this second line where it just says customer data, new customers is greater than 0. And what I could do is I could just say, okay, I only want this to run if the conditions are met and the goal result differs. So if it runs and it's 7 this time, then it kicks off well, in this case, it would be 7 processes. So it'd be one process. It's the customer process. The form will have 7 records in it. So it would kick off this form. If it ran the next time and it was still 7, would I want to run the goal again? Maybe not. Maybe since I already knew that I had 7, if I still have 7, then I don't want the goal to run. In this case, that would be a bad choice because the number of new customers that I have, they might both be 7. It would be a different 7 than the original 7, but the number might be 7. So I can't really depend on this goal result to determine whether I want it to run. But a lot of times you can. And so therefore we have that second option. Now I can have multiple conditions and results. As you see here, I have 2 for this particular goal. And that's perfectly fine, but I do need to determine how I want that to execute. So do I want to execute all of the conditions that are met, or do I only want to execute the first condition that are met? Now, again, in this case, I have 2 mutually exclusive conditions. Only one of them can ever run. So therefore, it doesn't really matter which of these 2 that I choose. I think in most cases, you're setting up a sort of a ranked choice voting system with your conditions. Check for this, then check for that, and then check for the other thing. And most of the times you only want one of those things to run. And so therefore you would select only the first action whose condition is met. So when we say first action, that means that the order in which your conditions and results appear is very important, because if you have five things and three of them might possibly be true at any given time, then you have to rank them in the order in which you want them to run from top to bottom. So if you're going to set only the first action whose condition is met, it becomes super important that you put them in the exact order in which you would like them to be evaluated, so that if the first one that it runs across is met, you don't want to run the rest of them. So this top execute options thing can be a little complex, but it gives you a lot of flexibility in determining how you want your goal to run and what actions you might want to take. Or even if you're not setting an action, even if you're just setting a result only, which is what my second one does. Even if you're just setting a result only, then you still want to put that order properly there, and you still want to ensure that things occur in the order in which you want them to. Of course, if you check all actions whose conditions are met, then fine, everything whose condition evaluates true will run. That also gets a little tricky, because if I have, let's say that both of these things might possibly be true. What if they are both true? What will the result of my goal be? Well, again, the order in which they appear here is very important, because when my first one runs, I actually set it to the result of a business value, which is the number of new customers that I have. And so as you can see, it's currently reading 4. So the goal is currently showing that I have 4 new customers. Okay, but let's say that both of these were true. And so it would go to this and say, okay, well, it's true. I'm going to do this stuff, and I'm going to set this result to 4 or 7, whatever it may be. And oh, wait a second, the second thing is also true. And this is a different result. This result is 0. Well, that must be the result that I have to set the business or the goal to. And so in this case, my result would be 0. So if both of these were true, I'd come up with a result of 0. So you do have to be careful. Also, if you hit all actions whose conditions are met, because the actual result of the goal will be the result of the last value, the last result that was set for the last condition that evaluated as true in the list of conditions that you have. So some testing may be required. Okay, someone says I'm having internet issues, so I'll have to catch the recording. I'm okay. Sorry about that. I don't think it's my end. I mean, it might very well be, but I do have gigabit internet. So is there a thing in Zoom that actually gives me an idea of what my streaming is? I mean, it's always possible that I could have a bad connection with Cox, but in any event, this will be on the internet. So, wait, another question. You're coming through just fine for me. Okay, well then I will assume that it is on it's on the user's end, not on my end. That's the trouble with HD streaming, I guess. You got to have the bandwidth to do it. All right, so let's talk about what we can do on these conditions and results now that we've got it clear what these execution options do. You don't have to set a condition, by the way. It's entirely optional. So let's go back to my webinar goal because I really don't want to mess up this goal at all. So we'll go back to my webinar goal so we can play around with things with our conditions and results. So we're going to add a new action. And as I add a new action, it says click to create condition. That is a suggestion. I don't have to create a condition. And in fact, there may be some times when you don't. Maybe you just want to run a process on a scheduled basis. And that's fine. You can do that. You don't have to set a condition. I think that's probably the minority of the use cases for which you'll set up a goal. In most cases, you're probably going to want to do more than one thing, or at least have the option to do one thing. As a general rule, I think the minimum is you're going to want to do two things. Either something is going to happen, and you're going to want to set a system state to note whatever the thing that you want to happen happened, or you don't want something to happen and you want to set a state that indicates nothing happened during that run. So I think if we go back up here and to the check customer data goal and we look at it, this is probably the most common use case for a goal. I have new customers. If I have new customers, I want to process those customers. So there's a process that I want to kick off to do that. If I don't have new customers, I don't want to do anything, but I do want to note that I don't have any new customers. So I'm going to set this result to 0. So I think in most cases, you will end up with at least 2 actions in conditions and result. So there may be some minority case where every time this goal runs, I want to run this process, or every time this goal runs, I want to run a knowledge view. You can do both. We'll take a look at that in a sec. But I think in most cases, you want to make that discrimination between a thing happened. So this is the thing happened result here, and thing did not happen, which is my second result. And I think that's probably the most likely use case that you'll have for most of your goals. Now, by default, run process is set up to perform this action. So remember earlier, what I said was the whole point of the scheduler module was to make something happen. It was either to run a process or to run a knowledge view that invoked a process for each row that was returned by the knowledge view. So by default, whenever you create a new action, it's going to want to run a process as well as setting a result. The goal always wants to set a result, so you should always have a result for your goal and set it appropriately. And then you're going to want to determine what happens with the process. If you don't want to run a process, which is the default, and you don't want to run a knowledge view, which will, most of the time when you hit run knowledge view, you're going to want to do two things. Either you're going to want to try to export that knowledge view somewhere, like, export it to Excel and put it in the content list so it can be downloaded, or to run a knowledge view that invokes a process for each row on the knowledge view. Those are the two most common things you do. In fact, the invoke process knowledge view is probably the most common thing that you would do with a knowledge view. The exporting the knowledge view to Excel or CSV is probably the second most common thing. But you don't have to do either of those two things. You can just set the result only. So that gets us into an interesting area about what happens after the goal runs and how we're going to use that goal. And we can use that in one of two ways. A, we can perform an explicit action. We can run a process, or we can run a knowledge view. That is, we are intentionally kicking off something to happen. We're explicitly invoking some action on the system. In fact, this knowledge view here, this check customer data knowledge view. In fact, does that. Let's go to my user profile workspace. And we're going here simply so that we can see there's nothing running on the system. I have no running processes. I have no tasks. Cool. So now let's go back to our check customer data knowledge view. And we'll pretend it is 2:26 p.m. today and my knowledge view is going to run. So if I evaluate my knowledge view now, it is going to go and look at my database, and my database is just a little list of customers and whether they're new or not. And as I predicted previously, my goal value has now changed. We're now back to 7 as my goal value. So I have 7 new customers, and my previous goal value was 4. So I've got 7 new customers. What does that mean, and why do I care? Well, let's go back to my user profile. The reason that I care is because I now, in fact, do have a task that is assigned to me, and I do have a running process because I had new customers. The number of new customers was greater than 0, so therefore something must be done. So I have a task assigned to me via the customer form that says, here we go. I have all of these new customers, and they all have to be processed. So when the goal ran, it said, hey, we've got 7 new customers. Somebody needs to do something about this customer. Great. I now get a task assigned. We're going to kick off the customer approval task. Okay, cool. So I'm going to approve each of these new customers, and I'm going to update each one. And by the way, as I update, let's refresh the form. Notice they no longer appear, although I will have to reset these, I guess. And we'll update 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's refresh our form. Okay, we're great. My task is done. All of my customers have been approved. We are fine. I've completed my task, and now my process is done. Well, cool. Let's go back to check customer data. We'll go back to our execution options, and let's evaluate our knowledge view again. My goal value is 0. So what that means is I set a result, and I set the result only. So nothing else is happening here. If I go back to my user profile, I have no task. There is nothing running on the system. Nothing is happening because the explicit action was not invoked. Now, the second type of action, though, that can happen is what we call an implicit action. Now, I have a very simple implicit action setup here. Let's go to check support tickets. And here's what check support tickets does. First of all, it doesn't invoke any action at all. All it's going to do is set a result, green, yellow, and red. It is going to evaluate the number of support tickets that are on the system. And if there are more than, less than, if there are 2 or fewer tickets. So if there are 1 or 2 current tickets that have not been processed yet, then the result is going to be green. If there are between 2 and 4 support tickets, if there are 3 or 4 support tickets, then my system is going to come back with the result of yellow. And then if there are more than 4 support tickets, it's going to come back as red. So nothing is really happening here. Well, that's not exactly true. Something is happening if we go to our tickets form. Now, I want you to note the goal value here is green. The goal value, if I were to run it again, which Again, it's not going to run until 2:57 p.m. Let's open my tickets form and see what happens. So when we say that we're going to do something implicitly, what that means is that we are not going to invoke a process or invoke a knowledge view. We're not going to perform any explicit action, but we do have a value. And that means that we can do things implicitly. We can evaluate the value of our goal. And based on that value, we can change something on the form, which is what we're doing here, as we're about to see, or we can change something on the process timeline. For example, we could set a needed when condition. So the needed when condition could check to see if our status was red for our support tickets. And if it was, it might have a user activity that adds a second or a third user or a group of users to notify them that there are a bunch of support tickets that they need to take care of. We're not doing anything really impressive with this implicit action. All we're really doing is setting some text on a form. That's about the simplest explicit action we can do. Oh, I'm also setting a color on a form. Remember, we can use colors as a status if we also have actual text for that status. So as we run things through here, we'll see the background color and the text color change. Just note that we're not just going to have red, yellow, and green stoplights. We are going to use text for accessibility purposes to notify users of what the status actually is. I do want you to note something. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 open tickets. My support status is showing as green. This is the big difference between a goal and something like a business value or a business rule, and what this status means. Unlike a business value or a business rule, the goal's value is only set when the goal is evaluated. If I'm in a form and I call a business value or a business rule, when that business value or business rule is invoked, it is going to run the business value. It's actually going to go grab the data and return it, whatever the current data is. Similarly, if I invoke a business rule, the actions that are set up in that business rule are always going to be invoked, and they're always going to be run. If I use a system variable to pull back the value of a goal, then all it's going to do is pull back the value of the goal. The goal is intentionally invoked only when it is scheduled, and the value only changes when it is scheduled. So despite the fact that my real goal value, since I do in fact have 7 support tickets outstanding, my support status is not in fact green. In actual fact, my support status is red, but that's not what it's telling me. And the reason it's telling me that is because yesterday at 2:57 p.m., when I ran this goal, it was green. And the reason it was green was because I did all of these support tickets. It's red now because I re-imported the Excel spreadsheet that has all this data in, and I reset it back to status quo ante. My goal has not caught up with the current state of the data. And because I say this goal is running every 30 minutes. So it should have ran at 2:57 yesterday instead of, it ran at 2:27. I didn't run the goal because this goal is not active. So therefore, my scheduled run did not occur. It is still holding in abeyance here. And so if I reevaluate my goal, it will show up as red again, and you can see the current value is red. The previous goal value is green. So now if I refresh my form, my goal value has changed. And so therefore it changes what I see on my form to match the number of tickets that I have. So there's a reason why it works the way that it works. Business values and business rules way less so than business values, and business values don't put a lot of pressure on the system, but depending on how they're set up, they're going to add some extra weight to the system whenever you invoke them. All right, so assuming that you've never called the data before, or you don't have caching on your SQL data source where you go out and grab data. When you invoke a business value, for example, it's always going to take the SQL statement that you've invoked for your business value or the knowledge view that you have set up. It's all going to run whenever you invoke it. So even if you just use let's go back and look at my tickets form in Design View. So I've got these 3 label controls here that I'm using. I know I shouldn't be using label controls for this. It's just that they were super easy to set up this way. You should not have label controls unless they are associated with a control via the associated control ID. You shouldn't be cowboying your way through with labels. I probably should have used text boxes and jump through more hoops, but it was just easier to do labels. I'm lazy. Sue me. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't use labels for crazy stuff like this, even though I'm doing it. So I've got these labels here, and the reason I did them is because I could style them. I could have done this, I suppose, with input controls. I could have done it with an HTML control, actually, and just drop 3 HTML controls over here to do the formatting there and just throw in a div tag. That would probably be the more proper way to do this. But in any event, I've got these 3 tags here. And so I'm just setting the label on these tags. And in field properties, I'm setting their visibility based on a condition. So this is the implicit action I was talking about. Based on the value of my goal, it is going to change which of these items are displayed on my form, whether it's red, green, or yellow. If I had a business value, so let's go back here to check support tickets. So I've got this business value called support tickets, right? Well, the support tickets, number of tickets is, whatever it is, less than 2, less than 4, whatever it is. All right, whenever I call this, it is going to evaluate support tickets and it's going to pull that number. Now, that's why I have only the first action whose condition is met. The reason why I'm picking only the first action is I'm going to be calling each one of these conditions. And every time I call one of these conditions, I am calling the support tickets business value. So I may conceivably call it 3 times. Now, every time I make that call, I'm invoking this business value. This is my support tickets business value, if I can click on the configure tab. So it is going to take this SQL statement and it is going to send it to SQL Server. And it is going to be processed by SQL Server and it's going to return the data to, well, I was about to say to me, it's actually returning it to process director. And because I have 3 conditions, this might conceivably happen 3 times. So The reason why goals work the way they do and why they don't get invoked, if I go back to my tickets form and I'm just going to copy here, check support tickets. I'm going to go back to my form here and I'm going to edit it just a little bit. Down here at the bottom, I'm just going to throw in goal check support tickets, and I'll save and close my form. There we go. And now I can refresh my form. And now the text red appears down here on the very bottom of my form. All that I am grabbing for red is whatever the current goal value is. I am not re-invoking all of these things, and I'm intentionally not re-invoking all of these three conditions, and I'm not evaluating them. I'm not trying to make anything happen. All I'm doing is grabbing red. And the reason I'm doing that is to reduce load on the system. So there's not that much load on the system that I would care about in this case. I'm going to return a very small data set from a small table. It's 7 rows of data, and each row is 15 bytes, maybe. No big deal. It will happen so fast I won't notice it. But it might be that I had multiple processes here that were calling knowledge views. And each of those knowledge views might take some appreciable amount of time to process, to return their data. And one of the reasons why the goal only evaluates when you invoke it manually by clicking Evaluate Now, or whenever its scheduled evaluation occurs, is so that I can do these things that are expensive in terms of system resources, and I can do them on a scheduled basis. So, for example, if I had a knowledge view that I needed to kick off, 100 processes, would it be better to run that in the middle of the business day, or would it be better to have a goal that would just evaluate sometime between midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning, and then just pulled that goal and then just ran all of those processes that would be expensive perhaps in terms of system resources? If I could schedule them to happen at night, that's probably better for everybody. And I only have to worry about them running whenever they are scheduled. Now, for the rest of the day, all through the business day, I could, try to evaluate this, or I wouldn't evaluate. I could still call the goal via a system variable, but all it's going to do is return the text red. So that is no load on the system at all. It simply returns that specific value without invoking everything behind it. So sure, that's cool, but that means you have to remember that this goal value has nothing to do with what is happening in real time. Business values do. Business rules do. Pretty much anything else that you call on the system, a knowledge view, whatever, that gives you a snapshot of the system as it exists at the moment it was invoked. Goals do not do that. Goals show you the value that existed whenever the goal was last evaluated, and the evaluation will never occur again until either its scheduled time arrives, and boy, we have to talk about scheduled time arriving, or whenever I manually invoke it by clicking the Evaluate Now button. So again, our support status is red. I have 7 tickets. 2, 3, 4. Okay, I've closed 1, 2, 3. I have to actually close 4 different tickets. Cool. Let me refresh my form. Now I've only got 3 tickets. My status in the real world is no longer red. My status is now yellow. If I want to reflect that yellow status, that's not going to happen and it's not going to show my yellow label and hide my red label until I reevaluate. And once my goal has reevaluated, which I just did, so my goal value is now yellow, only after the reevaluation will my form catch up with me. And so you do have to be a little bit careful about how you invoke those goals, because I now have no tickets at all. But because goals, and by the way, this every time I hit refresh here, it is going back and reevaluating the goal. I mean, it's not, the goal is not evaluating all of its conditions, but this is going back and grabbing the goal value and returning it. And it's always going to return whatever the goal value is until that goal is reevaluated, as I just did now. And now when I refresh, now my goal has finally caught up with the real state of the system, and my support status is green. So the goal is not giving you whatever the evaluation of the goal is. It's only returning to you whatever the last evaluation was, whatever its current value is. Be careful of this. I find myself sometimes when I'm playing around with goals that I've messed things up. And because I've messed things up, I'm seeing a goal and I go, well, I know that's not true. I know this goal is not, well, let's do this. Let's go back here and go back to my import database and hit import tables now. And let's refresh our form. And I will now have 7 support tickets again. I know that my support status is not green because I can see 7 support tickets here. However, the goal says it is in fact green, and the goal will continue to say that until I reevaluate it. So you do have to keep in mind that that goal is not happening in real time. So let's talk about what real time means in Process Director, because that's important for us to discuss the next area of the goal, which is our evaluation frequency. So by default, it wants to run the goal every day. That is probably good, especially if you have some, processes that you want to occur overnight. It's great to have a goal to be able to run at nighttime so that you can do, especially expensive processes in terms of system resources. It's great that you can be able to run them, one time a day and run them at night. Most of the time, I think you're probably going to want to run your goal more frequently, because you don't want this problem, support status green with 7 tickets. You don't want that showing up a lot. You want to minimize the lag between the last goal evaluation and your current state of the back-end data, because the goal won't reflect that until it's reevaluated. So you do have to be careful about it in that sense. You should set a frequency that balances whatever system resources you're going to need to use to invoke that goal. And look, you may not care, it may not be a lot of system resources, so you can invoke it fairly frequently. But being able to schedule expensive things, whether it's once a day or once an hour or whatever, that's a big advantage, as long as you don't have to worry all of that much about the concurrency of what the goal's result is. And if you do need a concurrent result and near real time is important to you, then maybe the goal isn't the best way to accomplish that, because we do have some limitations on timing unless you're on a very busy system where a lot of users are doing a lot of things all the time. The more users you have, the closer Process Director gets to a real-time system. Anything that is scheduled in Process Director is not scheduled on some sort of master clock that counts down the number of seconds until I can run again, right? If I say I want this to run every minute, I'm pretty confident that that is not going to happen. It might if you're on a super busy system with thousands of users who are constantly going in and doing tasks. Maybe we can get close to that 1 minute. Chances are your lower bound is probably going to be somewhere in the 15 to 25-ish minute range because of the way that timers run. There is no stopwatch, as I said earlier. What happens is timers are invoked on the system and timer checks get run. There are a lot of ways to run timer checks. In the troubleshooting, the server page, the server control page, where is it? Run timers, right there. I can click run timers and I can force the timer routines manually. Timer routines can also be forced by, do I have a, well, I don't have any active timelines, but I have completed timelines and we can look at that. So if I open up a timeline and I go to the administration timeline tab, part of displaying this tab is to invoke the timers for any running activities for this particular process timeline instance. So simply by opening the administration timeline tab, I am invoking the timers. Those are two ways that I can run it manually. There's actually a third way, I think, and don't quote me on this yet because I'm not sure. I think if I go to debug mode and I refresh server control, I can also recalculate activity due dates, which will kick off timers. What is my other? Oh, the other way. I can call activity underscore check dot ASPX. I have to pass that a parameter. I know it is documented. I'm not going to do it live here, but I think we probably do need to take a look at doc. And let me just type in activity underscore check because that gives us the URL that we need to run the activity check page. There we go. I can run activity check. I could just throw this into my browser. Obviously, localhost is going to be different. Like this is training.bplogix.net. So activitycheck.aspx, I could run that. I could also run, if I have like a process instance ID, I could run activity check for a particular process instance. For some reason, this is still using workflow ID. So I've got a couple of different ways that I can run those activity checks manually. Outside of that, whether timers run depends on what users are doing on the system. Right? So if a user completes an activity, it's going to run a timer check on that process timeline instance. So great, that's going to happen for that. And as other users do other things, other timers get invoked. And then we always recommend, and we do this for you automatically. If you're a cloud customer, if you're an on-premise customer, you need to do this for yourself. We have the activity check page using the Windows scheduler we call BP Util, and we run activity check every 20 minutes during business hours. So from like 8 to 6, every 20 minutes, activity check is running. So what that means is that when activity check gets invoked, your timers should be running when activity check gets invoked. So as a minimum, you're poking the timer every 20 minutes. So when you get into minutes, as your evaluation frequency, Um, 20 is about as small as I would go, unless I was on a really busy system with hundreds and hundreds of users. Because then I could be reasonably assured the more user I have, the more user activity that's going on my system, the closer a process director hits to, or the closer it is to a real time system. But process director is near real time, but is never actually real time. So if you're on a system that doesn't have, 1,000 users and doesn't have a whole bunch of processes and there's not a lot of user activity, then these timers are never going to be invoked. So one of the things that I routinely do if I am testing on my system, as I say all the time, this system is mine. There is hardly a time when anybody else is on this system. So if I start setting up scheduled things to happen, then I end up having to go to the server control page. I guess we can turn off debug mode. I have to go to the server control page a lot and manually run the timers, or if the timers are based on some timeline activity, I end up having to go into the timeline instance a lot and having to go to the administration tab just to invoke the timers, which for that particular timeline instance, whenever I go to the administration timeline tab. So I have to do one of those two things all the time, which is super tedious. I do occasionally get questions from customers that said, "Hey, look, I set this timer and I sat and I looked at my watch and I waited until the second hand got to zero or to 12 and nothing happened." Yeah, because there's no stopwatch that's running. It's not really being timed. Basically, when you set up a time, what you're essentially creating is a condition. And that condition is only going to be evaluated when the timer checks run. So keep in mind timer checks and how they affect the system and how it runs. Okay, so let's do now. We still have an hour left, so let's do some real world stuff with our goal. So we have this data here. Let's go ahead and take a look at our data. I don't want to. I don't need to check it out. I just need to look at it. So here is our background data, which will slowly open up in Excel. So I have a list of customers, and then I've got a flag for whether they're a new customer or whether they have a ticket in progress. So let's set up some things to check what to do with our customers. So I'm going to rename this, and we're going to call this check new customer. And what we're going to do is we're going to invoke an implicit action for uh, our for our customers. And I need to do this with a goal, right? So that check new customer may not be the best thing. So let's step back here. I'm changing horses in midstream because all of a sudden I realized that what I was about to do is just rebuild check customer data, and I don't want to do that. So let's pull I've already got a customer data. Oh, wait a second. I may not be able to use this data source either because does it have specific tables selected? Oh, yes, it does. I just saw check marks. It only does training customers. Okay, that's fine. I have a global one. So let's set up some data here. So we're going to create a new business value. And we're going to call it uh, data check because we're going to find the data that we want to check. And we're just going to call this the June 4 webinar so that I can pick it easier. So let me update that. And then we'll go to grab some SQL data. So we're going to use our internal user database. I can control my mouse. Um, oh, what have I just done? Let's try that again. Set my data source. It is data sources, internal user DB global. Okay, I don't know what happened there, but fine. At least we got in. Let's check our connection. It is successful. And let's look at all of our data here. And I don't remember what I called it. Uh, but I think we can pull airports. Um, Actually, I don't want to pull airports. I mean, they never change. Um, maybe I should just reproduce that now. I decided to change stream, and I actually have two good examples there. So you know what? I guess I'm going to have to repeat those examples. I'm sorry. I'm all higgledy-piggledy here because I didn't want to repeat doing that from scratch. And I guess there's no reason to repeat doing it from scratch. We've already seen how it worked. So now I'm just blanking out on setting up a goal that does something. I guess for the tickets form, that is something that we can do. So let's just go back here. Let's get rid of this data check because we're not going to need a different business value. We'll just pull the same business value. We're going to recreate it, but we're going to do something different. But we are going to recreate that business value. So I am going to reset it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a customer data check, and we're going to change the data off just a little bit. So we're going to go to our webinar goal, and we are going to click to create condition, and we're going to add a new condition, and we are going to go to our business value since we already exist, and that's our customer data. A, BR. Okay. I really needed to check what my group and value picker was. Okay, I was looking for goal and I didn't see that. I thought it was goal. Why didn't I see that? So let's click to create our condition. Let's add our condition. Once again, we'll go back down here. We'll go to, oh, you know what? I was looking at business values, not goals. Duh. So I'm looking for goal check. No, I was looking for business values. It is what I wanted. Goal check, A, B, C, D, E, F, and there it is. Goal training. I don't know why I couldn't find that. So customer data, new customers. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate the number of new customers. Now, I know I should have 7 currently. So just keep that in mind. We're going to return 7 customers. So now I want to do a thing. I want to check to see whether we have 4 or less new customers, or whether we have more than 4 new customers. So I'm going to need a couple of different conditions to test each of those conditions. So if I have less than, and we'll just go with number here, and we'll just go with 5. So if I have less than 5 customers, then I'm going to do something. And if I have more than 5 customers, I'm going to do something else. So if I have less than 5 customers, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to set a result. And we'll just call this easy. And I'm going to create another action. And again, I'm going to check my customer data. So business values, goal training, customer data, and new customers. And this time, if it is greater than or equal to the number 5, I am going to set my number of new customers to hard. So it's going to be easy or hard. And we're first going to start off doing an implicit action. Then we'll worry about an explicit action. And in fact, we've already seen an explicit action, so I'm not entirely sure I'll even create one for you in the interest of time. But for now, we're just going to set a result only. So the only thing that's going to happen here is I'm going to have a result set, and it's going to be either easy or hard because, once again, I have kind of mutually exclusive conditions. One of these and only one of these will always be true. So when do I want this to run? I want this to run, in this case, when the conditions are met and the goal result differs from the previous result. So when I first run this, it is going to be hard. So I will evaluate that now. And the goal value is true. Evaluate now. Oh, I better update this so that all of the things I've done have changed. Let's evaluate again. There we go. Now it says hard. That's what I expected to see. Updating your value is very important before you evaluate the goal. All right, so it's going to come back easy or hard. Now, this is one of those cases, we'll pretend that I only want to, well, I'm not executing any actions here, so it doesn't really matter. If I was executing an action, this might be one of those cases where you might want to check conditions are met and goal result differs from the previous result. Because if it's hard, and it's still hard, I don't want to re-invoke the conditions again. I've already handled it, or I will have handled it in my process, as we'll see in a little bit. Now, it doesn't matter because Here it says execute actions. I'm not actually performing any actions. All I'm doing is setting a result. So in this particular case, it doesn't matter. But if I wanted to, let's say I had a process I wanted to invoke, if I had more than 5 new customers in a day, and so there was maybe some secondary process that went out to additional people to say, hey, you need to, maybe it's just a notification that said, hey, you need to help with processing new customers because we got an extra large bunch of new customers today. And I wanted to send that notification. I probably only want to send that notification once if I evaluate the goal value and it comes back as hard because I know I'm going to have a hard day because I have many, many new customers. Probably not going to want to do that a bunch of times during the day. It's going to get super irksome if I were to do that. So this would probably be one of those great examples of I only want to execute that action. So let's say I was going to run we got a lot of new customers process. I really only want to do that if it shows up as hard and it was previously easy. If I run this goal several times and it returns hard all the time, I probably don't want to invoke that again, especially if it's during the same day. So that would be a good time where I want to check that the goal result differs. I only want to run if this is true that I have more than or equal to 5 new customers and the goal previous result was easy. Then I say, okay, well, now I can run this action. Now for us, we're not going to run an action. We're doing an implicit action. So we're just going to go back to set result only. I'm not going to worry about evaluation frequency at this point. So we'll go ahead and ignore that because I'm going to evaluate the goal manually. In fact, I have evaluated the goal manually, and I know that because I have more than 5 new customers, I'm going to have a hard day. So let's just keep that. So now I've got a goal. Great. It's called webinar, and it is the June 4 webinar goal that I am going to call. So now we have a process that we want to run. So I'm not going to create a form and everything for this process. I'm just going to go ahead and create a process timeline. And we're just going to call this the new customer timeline. And we'll hit OK here. And then we'll create an activity and we'll call this process new customers. And I'm the participant. I'll just set it to me. Great. And let's create another activity. And we'll run it in conjunction with or in parallel with process new customers. And we'll call this process lots of new customers. Now, this is kind of I probably wouldn't do this in the real world. However, we have processed lots of new customers, and I need some help in processing my customers. So I'm just going to grab Diana. Actually, let's do it via group. Let's actually follow our recommendations for how we want to assign new customers. So we'll have HR. Actually, it's probably not HR that we want. We'll go with finance. So finance is assigned to this process lots of new customers task. So I've got 2 tasks that are going to run when this process timeline starts. However, if I don't have 5 customers, if it's going to be an easy day, I don't need everybody in finance to help me with this. So therefore, I only want this to happen whenever I have less than 5 customers. And rather than evaluate the business value itself, which I could, but which I don't want to do because I don't want to invoke the business value. I don't want to make the database call. In this case, it's not a big deal, but let's pretend that making the database call would be complex. It's some wicked stored procedure that takes a while to run. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, okay, you know what? Let's just evaluate the goal. Because we can just pull the webinar goals value and if that value is hard, then we're going to need some help because it's going to be hard to process all of these new customers. So great. Now I've got this activity. This is my helper activity, process lots of new customers, and it's going to run whenever the webinar is hard. So we'll close that. We'll hit OK. And now let's run our new customer timeline. So our new customer timeline has been invoked. It automatically is going to assign a task to me with the standard form. I'm really not interested in that. I am interested in looking at the active timeline and popping open its properties and ensuring that process new customers is assigned to me and apparently to Barb Stanley, who is evidently the only test user who exists in the finance group. But the important thing to know is that it has assigned both. That's cool. That's what I expected to happen because my current status is hard. Now, we will go here and we will cancel this timeline. And then we're going to go check our customer data. We're going to just run our customer form real quick. And 1, 2, 3, 4, update, 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 update. Great. So now I've processed those customers and we'll go back to our webinar goal. Status is currently hard. We're going to evaluate our goal. Now our goal value is easy, cool. So now we will go to our new customer timeline. That's not where I wanted to go. I actually wanted to go to goal so that I could run my new customer timeline. And again, it is going to assign a task to me because I know that process new customers task is always going to run. But when we go back and look at our active timelines and we look at this version of the new customer timeline, the only process timeline activity that is running is the process new customers because the status of our goal is easy. So therefore, I don't need help from Barb to process all those customers, and thus the activity does not run. So that is an example of an implicit action. I could also create, in fact, well, I can't actually do it from this goal. I have to create a copy of this goal, but I can use a very similar goal. So we're going to copy and copy here. So I now have this goal called webinar copy. And in this one, I can actually invoke the explicit action. So I can run this process. This will run my new customer timeline. And actually, I don't even have to, I actually would have to change this. I can't run it from here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the old goal. We're kind of going to recreate it. We're just going to recreate the same explicit action. Um, that's fine. What I want is if it equals 0, um, okay, customer data, new customer. Uh, what's going on? Why are we stuck? Okay, well, apparently it took it. Customer data, new customers equals 0. Um, we are actually going to set the result only there. And if my customer data is greater than 0, we are going to run our process. And in this case, we are going to run our new customer timeline. So now we have two goals, one that has an explicit action and one that has an implicit action. So when we evaluate this goal, let me update it. So when we evaluate this goal, again, I've got my new customer timeline. It's going to check, and if well, actually, we'll set this to um, none, and we'll set one to new customers, and we'll call the other one no one new. Doesn't really matter because we're not really going to evaluate this result. The result that we're going to evaluate is the one that we just did in webinar. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check if we have no new customers, we're not going to do anything. If we have any new customers, we're going to run our new customer timeline. When our new customer timeline runs, it's going to check the value of the original goal, and it's going to determine what to happen. You know, what I really need to do is, when do I want to invoke this? So now I'm thinking, how can I do all of this with one single goal to invoke the timeline and to also evaluate the timeline? So here, this just invokes it. I can't really use this for anything else. If I evaluate it, it's going to be great. And it's going to kick off my process. We didn't actually see it here, but if I go back over here to user profile, I should see my new user timeline show up here. There we go. It is showing up. It is showing up twice for some reason. Not sure why that is. I may have two running. I may have manually ran one and have another running. So let me complete that. And we'll pull this, and there's our new customer timeline. We'll complete that. So cool. We know that that invokes the timeline. So how can we use the same one to determine what we do so that we can do both an explicit and an implicit action in the same timeline? So let's go back here to our webinar timeline. Let's go to our execution options. Let's add another action. And we're going to run this up to the top. And we are going to run a process, and we are going to run a process. I should probably show you run knowledge view, but it's getting to 11:30, so I'm probably not going to have a run knowledge view that I'm going to be able to run for you. But I'm going to set this result only, and I am going to say if customer data, new data, so We'll go to our business value and goal training, customer data, new customers. So this is returning the number of new customers. So let me say that equals 0. Okay, and I want to set the result none. And now I've still got my easy or hard. So I am going to want to invoke the new customer timeline for each of these. And I don't need my webinar copy anymore, so I can get rid of that one. So now let's see how this is going to work. Okay, if it's 0, none, we're going to set a result only. Nothing is going to happen. We're cool. Less than 5, not going to work because 0 is less than 5. So I'm going to need to evaluate this. So we're going to add an AND condition. So we're going to say the value for new customers. There we go. Finally did it. We're going to say that it is I think this will work. If I just go greater than 0, I should probably look at my other condition to figure out how I did it. And less than 5. So it's greater than 0 and less than 5. I think that is the condition I want. So greater than 0 and less than 5. It should be easy and invoke the new customer timeline. If it is greater than or equal to 5, it should run the new customer timeline, but the goal result should be hard instead of easy. So it should be none, easy, and hard. That should work. However, I'm going to confirm this by going back to my check customer data. And no, it's not check customer data. It's check support tickets. Support tickets are greater than 2 and support tickets are less than and equal 4. Okay, so my tiny little brain seems to have gotten it right. So we'll go back here to goal. We'll get rid of our copy because we don't need it anymore. We'll delete that one. And now we should have a single goal that does everything that we want to do. Yeah, delete it. Thank you. This one single goal should do everything we want to do. So if there are no new customers, it should return 0. And therefore the result will be none. And if there are more than 0, but less than 5 customers, it should be easy. And if there are more than 5 customers, it should be hard. Let's evaluate now because I don't remember what the state of my data is. State of my data is easy. So I have more than 0 customers, but I have less than 5 customers. What that means is that it should have kicked off the active timeline. It should have kicked off my new customer timeline. So let me go back, run process new customer TL, run process new customer TL. Evaluate now. It's easy. Oh, that's not going to evaluate anything. I'm going to change this to conditions are met and evaluate. There we go. And now I should save this and I should be able to go to active timelines and all right. So this is obviously a configuration problem on my part. I think that's okay. I think that's okay. I want to do it anytime conditions are met. I only want to run the first action whose condition is met. So since it's set to easy, this should be what is met. It should be running the process new customer TL. It says it's running the new customer TL. Let's check that. It should be running new customer TL. Current history is easy. Update. Evaluate now. And do I have a new timeline? Okay, I do have a new timeline. So for whatever reason, something was configured incorrectly. Now it is no, oh, it was configured incorrectly. See, I had it set to conditions are met and goal result differs from previous result. It wasn't creating my timeline. That I did not want. So now it does create my timeline. Only one timeline activity should be running, and only one is process new customers. We're cool. I like the way this is headed. We'll cancel that timeline. Well, if I can get the mouse on the button, we'll cancel the timeline. I think my mouse speed is too high. I've got a new Elecom trackball, and I think I need to dial back the speed from 11. Let's go back into our workbook, and we're going to want to reset it to hard, right? So I need to re-import my tables to return my data back to the status quo ante that they were in the original data. That should do it. Now we go to the goal, and I should be able to evaluate it. The goal value should be hard. The goal value is in fact hard, and if you saw the spinny, that spinny means that process director was trying to do stuff, and the stuff it was trying to do was to start this process, which I don't even have to open to know that the timeline activities that are running is process new customers and process lots of new customers. So I know before I even open up the instance that those two timeline activities are running. So in this example, I have a single goal, my webinar goal, that performs both explicit and implicit actions. The explicit action it kicks off is to start the new customer timeline when I have any new customers. The implicit action it kicks off is in the needed when tab for process lots of new customers, which I only want to run if we're having a hard day because we have a whole bunch of new customers that have to be processed. So a lot of people need to jump in to update all their records and to add their stuff. So my single goal now, when evaluated, will do both explicit and implicit actions to make Process Director work the way that I want it to work whenever the new customer timeline starts. Indeed, it starts the new customer timeline de novo based on the number of new customers that I have. And with that, we're done. Have a great day today and a great week and weekend coming up. I'll look forward to seeing you all next Thursday. So long.